After around 5 months of reading, finally we are at this chapter 9, and we completed 8 chapters. Now we are here, shining the light of wisdom. I checked quickly. The introduction of this chapter is a lengthy one, so we would probably take like 2 weeks to complete just the introduction. We are at the climax of the book. That's why it has to be lengthy. Introduction. The texts cited in the last chapter treated meditation as a discipline of mental training, aimed at a twofold task: stilling the mind and generating insight. The still mind, calm and collected, is the foundation for insight. The still mind observes phenomena as they arise and pass away, and from sustained observation and probing exploration arises the higher wisdom of insight into phenomena. The Pali word Adipanya Dhamma Vipassana. As wisdom gathers momentum, it penetrates more and more deeply into the nature of things, culminating in the full and comprehensive understanding called enlightenment, Sambodhi. In the previous chapter, we read about this twofold task. One is stilling the mind. The other one is generating insight. As we penetrate more and more deeply, as wisdom gathers, then it culminates in enlightenment. Sister Aikim, would you like to continue?
The word Pali, the Pali word translated here as wisdom is Panya, the Pali equivalent of Sanskrit Prajna, which gives its name to the voluminous Prajna Paramita Sutras of Mahayana Buddhism. The idea of Panya or Prajna as the principal tool on the path to enlightenment, however, did not originate with the Prajna Paramita literature, but is already deeply embedded in the teachings of early Buddhism. The Nikayas take Panya not as a point of doctrine, but as a rich theme for imaginary. Thus, text 9.1 speak of Panya respectively as a light and a knife. It is the supreme light because it illuminates the true nature of things and dispels the darkness of ignorance. It is a knife, a sharp butcher's knife, because it cuts through the tangled mass of the defilements and thereby opens the way to liberation.
Okay, thanks, Sister Aikim. So, if you keep hearing this word, Prajna Paramita in Mahayana Buddhism, now you know where is the source. It is already embedded deeply in the teachings of early Buddhism. So here he mentions the Nikayas takes Panya not only just as a point of teaching, just a point of doctrine, but also a very rich theme of imagery. So what does that mean? The text uses the analogy of both a light and a knife. So why a light and a knife? It is supreme light because Panya wisdom illuminates the nature of things, dispels the darkness of ignorance. Very rich imagery. Maybe we use orange here. And then it's also a knife because it cuts through our defilements, open the way to liberation. So here we can see the skillfulness of the Buddha using imagery to illustrate a difficult concept. Sister Billy, would you like to continue?
The Pali word panya is derived from the verbal root nya. Sanskrit is nya, meaning to know, preceded by the prefix pa, Sanskrit pra, which merely gives the root meaning a more dynamic nuance. So, panya, prajna means knowing or understanding, not as a possession, but as an action. The act of knowing, the act of understanding, the act of discerning. In Pali, the verb pajanati, one understands, conveys this sense more effectively than the correlative noun panya. What is meant by panya, however, is a type of understanding superior to that which occurs when one understands. For instance, a difficult passage in an economics textbook, or the implications of a legal argument. Panya signifies the understanding that arises through spiritual training, illuminates the nature of things, and culminates in the mind's purification and liberation. For this reason, despite its drawbacks, I continue to use the familiar wisdom.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
Sister Billy. So here, Bhikkhu Bodhi mentioned, define a little bit of the words from the Pali definition. Yeah. So firstly, knowing or understanding not as possession, I highlight this, but more of as an action. The act of knowing, the act of understanding, the act of discerning. One understands convey the meaning better. Yeah. Here, Bhikkhu Bodhi mentioned. And there's a footnote here. Let me open footnotes number 1. Unfortunately, the connection between the noun and the verb, so obvious in the Pali, is lost when panya is translated as wisdom and the verb rendered one understands. To avoid this, other translators have preferred renderings for panya that preserve a visible connection between the noun and the verb. For example, understanding by Bhikkhu Nyanamoli, or discernment by Thanissaro Bhikkhu. So here we can get a little bit of the nuance in the translation. Not an easy job to translate, especially from language like Pali to English. But all these monks are the expert of it. And recently, there's also Bhante Sujato, who creates SuttaCentral.net. So we are very blessed with all these different translators, so that we can compare and contrast to gain a better understanding. And this is also important. What is meant by panya is not just merely understanding a concept. The one highlighted in, let me use orange. Not just merely understanding a concept, but it signifies understanding much deeper that arrives to many years of spiritual training that illuminates the real nature of things. But still, because there is no better word in English, Bhikkhu Bodhi settled using the word wisdom. Sister Shomi, would you like to continue?
Contemporary Buddhist literature commonly conveys two ideas about Panya that have become almost axioms in the popular understanding of Buddhism. The first is that Panya is exclusively non-conceptual and non-discursive, a type of cognition that defies all the laws of logical thought. The second, that Panya arises spontaneously through an act of pure intuition, as sudden and instantaneous as a brilliant flash of lightning. These two ideas about Panya are closely connected. If Panya defies all the laws of thought, it cannot be approached by any type of conceptual activity, but can only arise when the rational, discriminative, conceptual activity of the mind has been stultified. And this stopping of conceptualization, somewhat like the demolition of a building, must be a rapid one, an undermining of thought, not previously prepared for by any gradual maturation of understanding. Thus, in the popular understanding of Buddhism, Panya defies rationality and easily slides off into crazy wisdom, an incomprehensible, mind-boggling way of relating to the world that dances at the thin edge between super-rationality and madness.
Okay, thanks, Sister Shami. So here, Bhikkhu Bodhi addresses two contemporary Buddhist literature that commonly emerge in the recent years. Let me highlight this. Okay, two ideas here that recently emerged. The first one is that Panya is exclusively non-conceptual and non-discursive. And the second is an act of pure intuition, sudden, instantaneous as a brilliant flash of lightning. They highlight this. Yeah, these two are closely connected. And okay, Bhikkhu Bodhi emphasized again, in the popular understanding of Buddhism, which means the recent ideas, yeah, Panya defies rationality and slides off into crazy wisdom, incomprehensible, mind-blogging way of relating to the world that dances between super rationality and madness. Is it true? We will find out in the next paragraph. Sister Saiken, would you like to read?
Such ideas about Panya receive no support at all from the teachings of the Nikayas, which are consistently sane, lucid, and sober. To take the 2 points in reverse order, first, far from arising spontaneously, Panya in the Nikaya is emphatically conditioned, arisen from an underlying matrix of causes and conditions. And second, Panya is not bare intuition, but a careful, discriminative understanding that at certain stages involves precise conceptual operations. Panya is directed to specific domains of understanding. These domains, known in the Pali commentaries as the soil of wisdom, Panya Bhumi, must be thoroughly investigated and mastered through conceptual understanding before direct, non-conceptual insight can effectively accomplish its work. To master them requires analysis, discrimination, and discernment. One must be able to abstract from the overwhelming mass of facts certain basic patterns fundamental to all experience and use these patterns as templates for close contemplation of one's own experience. I will have more to say about this as we go along. Thank you.
Thanks, Sister Saitia. So here, Bhikkhu Bodhi makes it clear, such ideas about crazy wisdom, instantaneous, brilliant moment of wisdom, is not supported at all in the teachings of Nikayas. Let me highlight this again. Receive no support at all from the teachings of early Buddhism, which Panya defined in the teachings consistently sane, lucid, and sober. So to tackle that point, far from arising spontaneously, Panya is empathically conditioned, Bhikkhu Bodhi mentioned here, arising from an underlying matrix of causes and conditions. And second, Panya is not bare intuition. Let me highlight this. It's not bare intuition, but a careful, discriminative understanding that at certain stages involve precise conceptual operations. And the one highlighted in yellow, to master them requires analysis, discrimination, and discernment. And then Bhikkhu Bodhi mentioned, as we go along, he will have more things to say about this. So he has to tackle all this emerging popular idea in the recent modern times. Okay, Sister Chaikon, would you like to continue? You're muted.
The conditional basis for wisdom is laid down in the three-tier structure of the Buddhist training. As we have seen, in the three divisions of the Buddhist path, moral discipline functions as the basis for concentration, and concentration as the basis for wisdom. Thus, the immediate condition for the arising of wisdom is concentration. As the Buddha often says, develop concentration, monks. One who is concentrated sees things as they really are. To see things as they really are is the work of wisdom. The immediate basis for this correct seeing is concentration. Since concentration depends on proper bodily and verbal conduct, moral discipline too is a condition for wisdom.
Okay, thanks, Sister Chaikon. Let me highlight this so we know where we ended. So here again, we are back into the three-tier structure of the Buddhist training. What are the three tiers? Moral discipline. We highlight this in orange. As the basis for concentration. Let me highlight this differently. So moral discipline as the basis for concentration. Second tier as the basis for wisdom. Third tier. Footnotes number 2. Okay, this is all the sutta reference, Samyutta Nikaya, and all the different chapter in it. Okay, with that, let's quickly take a look at what we have went through. Firstly, we recap the previous chapter, the twofold task of meditation, stilling the mind and generating insight, culminating in enlightenment, Sambodhi. And then we explore the word panya or prasna in Sanskrit, and now we discover where does the popular prasna paramita comes from. And then we talk about the imagery of wisdom as a light and a knife. A light because it dispels the darkness of ignorance, a knife because it cuts away the defilements. And then we explore again the root word of Panya, and then discovers that a more appropriate translation, it's hard to find in English, but you can say one understands, the act of understanding. And then we tackle commonly emerging ideas in the contemporary Buddhist literature, that wisdom is some kind of a crazy wisdom that's instantaneous. And lastly, we talk about the three-tier structure of the Buddhist training: moral discipline, concentration, and wisdom. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop here. Thanks, Sister Sakyang. Till we meet again, you will be guided by the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have an understanding Monday ahead.